welcome to Malcolm and We, seen and heard exclusively on malcolmpresents.com, a streaming platform heard around the world and beyond. Again, we haven't figured out when where beyond is, but I do get messages from extraterrestrial people, or I don't know if they would be people. They be people or creatures or entities?
All of the above. Well, they're all of the above.
They're all of the above.
Extraterrestrial beings, we might say.
Right. And they do like the show and they're very much informed.
I'm sure they do because you are talking about all the evolutionary pathways that they would like us to be walking down rather than
Right.
the ones that many on this planet are walking backwards down.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and I think it's more than just ETs because they come from other realms as well.
I'll speak to you next Wednesday and we'll see how backwards we're going. Anyway, I'm
Yeah.
the co-host of the show, Malcolm Berman. That's Yana Larson on Upframe is my co-host. And Yana, introduce our guest.
I'd love to. Janice Hall is a social alchemist and synergistic culture and business ecosystem designer with a broad-based global network who thrives on connecting visionary change agents, paradigm shifters, and evolutionary leaders. She is gifted at articulating the narratives for a new, thrivable worlds and futures. As president of Natural Network International since 1991, she leads a strategic management, business development, trends forecasting, and brand building company focused on wellness, environmental sustainability, climate change, and clean technology solutions that are committed to fostering a regenerative and evolutionary coherent world. She played a role as one of the architects of the natural and organic products industry and is working toward global peace by contributing pioneering efforts in media and international event development with the Natural Products Expos, the UN, and various NGOs. Working with the Arctic Arts Project, American Renewable Energy Institute, and Action for Nations, she consults on strategic partnerships and marketing as well as fundraising. In addition, she is an advisor to the Environmental Education Fund, Unity Earth, and Behera Foundation, the leadership team of the One Humanity Institute, and is part of the Wisdom Collaboratory of the Tipping Point System. Welcome, Janice. And it's so wonderful to have you here because you are a very busy person involved with many, many, many
All right.
things.
Well, welcome, Janice. Yeah, Janice.
Yeah.
When Yana was introducing me, I was getting tired. How the hell do you have the energy?
So we've got Jana and Yanis, or is it and Janice?
But
See,
you
we're all
see,
related, so it doesn't matter.
yeah,
Yeah, how do you find the time, Janice? And I know you're very busy with not only what I've mentioned, but helping your mom, living with your mom, and I know you're a great daughter, and I know you have a lot of fun with your mom.
I do. I do. Mom is 95, and I am in the Villages, Florida, which is sort of Disney World for seniors, if you will. She's been here since 1994, and I left Princeton after having an accident where my porch fell out from under me. Anyway, I came down to recuperate and spend 6 months with Mom back in 2017, and then realized that she needed a companion to stay in her home. And then COVID happened, and I was very grateful to be here. And that's a time really where my world really expanded, as many people's did. You know, I ended up with making many of my global friends became very close friends. And so we met weekly on with a lot of different Zoom expanded, and we met a lot of different groups, and a lot of different synergies happen. And I feel like that was a time where I could be a companion for my mom, and I could also do my Dharma, which my last name is Hall. And actually, I work with Aboriginal people as well. And one of the Nunkari, which is the medicine man, the guy they call when they need it to rain, and he dances and it rains. But he calls me the hallway. So they all started
Oh.
calling me the hallway. He'll occasionally say, I want you to get the hallway. I need to set up a Zoomerang. I want to tell her something. I want the world to know this. So I just hang around with a lot of people who are smarter than me, and I'm passionate about, as you said in the beginning, introducing the paradigm shifters of the world and really building a bridge between the ancient knowledge and wisdom that is really coming to the forefront now, and those who wish to carry it forward into the future. One of the things that really came to me through the gift of working with indigenous people around the planet is that they're all being told by their ancestors, who they speak with in real time, like you were speaking here today, that the prophecies that they've been holding close to their tribal culture for many centuries, it's now time to release those prophecies, because that time is now. And what's so fascinating to me is how similar these prophecies are, and how connected they are to the dreams of people like us who don't come from those indigenous backgrounds, although we're all.
Give us an example of who you speak to, where are they from, and speak of indigenous people throughout the world, or
Yeah, well, let's say, for instance, I've worked with our dear brother, Chief Phil Lane. I met him first in 1994. I was there for when he was made a chief. And so I've worked with Native Americans in different aspects, carrying their culture and introducing people is really what I do a lot of. I involved with a group that our brother, Chief Hereditary Phil Lane, put together called Sacred Prayers of 22 Women from Mother Earth. And it started with Indigenous women. And so once a month, 22 women pray, but there's often 40, 50, 60 people in the room, and we weave prayers of peace. And so we work with women from literally all over the world. And I seem to be a magnet for them for some reason. And so this is a part of my life I never planned, and I just say yes. The most unusual would be my Aboriginal connections, because I've never been to Australia. And I spent half my life talking to people from Australia and working with people from Australia, like Uncle Lewis Walker. He's a Bundjalung wisdom keeper and Nunkari medicine man. And he has, I think, 13 tribes that he manages for his father, Pop Walker, who's old now. But he lives in the bush country on Rocky River. And so the first time I was to meet him, he had been told about me. I was told he had just gotten a cell phone. It was like 4 years ago or so, or more. And he wanted me to make a 1-minute video so he could read my energy. It's like, how do I make a 1-minute video for an Aboriginal who lives in the bush country on a river? What do I say to him? So basically, I told him that I wanted to invite him to be part of our global tribe, because working together, we could really support each other. And then he was willing to meet me on Zooms, and he's been my guest in many Unity Earth events. And he introduced me to his family via Zoom, put a TV on a card table. They were all having a picnic by the Rocky River, and there's this family of Aboriginal people, and I'm on a computer, just picture that, with another Indigenous woman. So these amazing things happen to me. And I work with Dr. Emoto's son, Hiro Emoto, and I was blessed to be invited to be part of the World Water Ceremony on during International Peace Week. And so we brought together people from all over the world to do water ceremonies. And so I've connected even more with Indigenous people. It seems that a lot of Indigenous people lead these ceremonies, and a lot of us are attracted to it, because it seems like humans are hungry now for what's next for that new earth. And going back to the beginning of the conversation with COVID, I think people sat back and they either binged on Netflix or went, holy moly, who am I? And what do I want to be when I grow up? Is this all there is? And so it really led people to ask for more. So I think that this ancient knowledge has been really of great interest. So I work with, when I say work with, I don't get paid to do any of this, it's Dharma work. But for me, it's really connecting. And because I am a new paradigm storyteller and I'm good at fusing things together. So when I hear these stories, fusing might be not synthesizing.
Mhm.
And so I often introduce, like I've introduced Aboriginal people to the Kogi when they were up in New Jersey visiting with Chief Dwayne Perry. And so they were blessing his land and cleaning it up. And this is the Ramapo Munsee Lenape Nation where I grew up. I grew up on their unceded territory in New Jersey.
You
And
grew up where?
in Ramsey, New Jersey.
Remsen?
Yeah, you know it? Anybody?
No, I'm a native New Yorker, but
Oh, okay. So anyway, that was interesting. So they allowed us to come in by Zoom so via Zoom, the Kogi who came up from South America, from the Sierra Nevadas of British Columbia, were at the Ramapo land because their mountain had told them they needed to go there and bring it back to its origin because it had been raped and pillaged by colonization and the Ku Klux Klan, etc. And so it was just one more thing, it was a private ceremony for 5 days, but they allowed me to come in for 2 hours with some Aboriginal people to watch them doing what they were doing on the land and meet them.
yeah,
So
yeah, what's it called?
what's what called?
No, you say I interrupted you.
Did you mean the Arapaho?
No, Ramapo Munsee Lenape Nation up in New York.
Uh,
And that's a whole story. The US wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. But they were given some of their land back, and I've been very active in helping them. So, I mean, I could go on. I just keep meeting people from other traditions. I work with people in Nepal and Latin America and South America and all over the US. And I pretty much put people together and synthesize their stories and share them. And it's
network.
wonderful to be able to do that. We used to call it networking. So it's
Networking.
planetary
People call
weaving
it
network.
networking.
Are any of these meetings taped or
Oh yeah, you can find them a lot on a lot of the Unity Earth World Unity Week. There's a lot of different platforms that I've been on. So I
and
like this.
because if you have Malcolm and we basically our thing is to do what you're doing is bringing people together. So if they have any videos that
Oh,
we
there's
could use.
plenty of videos. Like for instance, I know you know Ben Bowler and
Yes.
Yeah.
the Earth, and they just took a bunch of them went to Japan for Peace Week.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I was working with Hiro Emoto, who's Dr. Emoto's son, the famous Dr. Emoto, who was able to prove that water is a living, breathing, ancestral being and has messages for us. And so I introduced them, and then I introduced them to the platform of uh, Peter Young and his what's the new platform called?
I'm not sure. I'm not deeply
In
into that type of
Canada,
movements.
Peter Young in Canada,
Yeah,
or
Peter Young. Yeah, his platform.
okay,
And
good
so
in
that's
the network.
Right. Well, as I
Very
what?
say, if we could
Comcast Network. Yeah. Comcast.
if we could get any of those videos, we'd be glad to put them on
Oh,
Malcolm Presents
sure.
and
I
just
have
as
access to many
another.
of those.
Yeah.
The thing
Oh,
is, there's so many stories to be told now, and we're at a tipping point in our life right now. And as we know, this upcoming election, because I don't know when this will air, but I don't know if we give the date here because we're just about to have a very
Right.
significant
Actually,
election.
this show will be on probably later today.
Aha,
Because since
aha,
we don't do any editing.
right.
I mean, basically, it's, that introduction you got, and then you see at the end, and that's the show. You either love it or leave it, as they say.
Right. Well, yeah, so I can definitely help by bringing that together. This sort of started early in my life when I got involved in the natural products industry on the ground floor and got to be one of the architects there. One of the things that I did do was weave larger groups together and start. I was the first director of international development. For instance, we shouldn't be doing this just as the US. So I studied different countries and their natural products and wrote white papers on them. And then I decided we could have natural, different international pavilions at the trade shows. And we brought in people from countries from all over the world for these trade shows that began like in the 90s, in the 80s. I worked with them from 87 to 93. And we had 9,000 come to our trade shows originally. And when I left, there were like 35,000 from 40 different countries. And so that's what I love doing, was really seeing where the black holes are, because I feel like we're at a tipping point in society, in the world,
In the
in our
world.
future. And we have the answers, many of them, and we have the people. We have enough people to create a social tipping point for a socially just, environmental, sustainable, regenerative world. We just don't know each other. So
Well,
that's what
we
passion is going, yeah,
Right.
to weaving these networks together, to finding the black holes and going, well, you're doing this and you're doing this. You two ought to get together. However, this collaboration rather than competition often fosters a big aha moment. But for others, it's sort of like, well, I've spent 20 years getting to here. And if I work with you, then I have to give this up. So it's a real call to action to ask, well, why are each of us doing this? And do we want just to make a bunch of money, or are we really in it for building a better future for, those we leave behind?
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I think it seems well, the older I'm getting, I'm seeking more of the meaning of life, which is, a big thing. But why are we here, so to speak?
Mhm.
How do we connect to, the indigenous people who were here before us? What can we learn from them? What can we, especially with the Zoom, and I'm zooming, with Yana, I'm zooming around the world with different people, as the same as you're doing. What can we do to make, is there a meaning to life? I mean,
Yeah.
I hate to say it, it's such a broad thing, but why are we here? Is there a connectivity between us and the rest of the world? That's what I hate about the politics right now in the U.S., which is expounded by Trump, is or as Stephen Miller said, America for Americans. I don't know what an American is. You know,
Right. Exactly.
I mean, does he mean the Native Americans here, the indigenous people? I don't think so.
No. And see, we've forgotten as a society that this is not our land, that we stole it, and we need to honor those we stole it from, and we've broken all of our treaties, and that we can't get from here to there as society without their help. And what's beautiful about that is that I see the indigenous rising, and yes, they're incredibly traumatized, and that's something that we need to be very sensitive to when we ask them to share their knowledge, because when they have in the past, they've been abused. So it's important to lift them up and really listen to what they have to say, and to recognize that it's an integration of the past, how it works with the present, and that together, that's how we get to a future that's regenerative for those we leave behind. I have no children, so I want to be a good ancestor. And people say, well, if you have no children, how can you be an ancestor? Well, we're all stardust.
Well,
We're all made from everybody else. Yeah. I
well,
just want to leave a footprint. And I think going to that point about the youth is we need to listen to them. They're coming in much smarter than when I was their age. And there's a reason for that because they're star seeds, many of them, and they've come here to teach us. And we need more intergenerational dialogues. And that is what I'd love to help you with because it's bringing the indigenous wisdom with the evolutionary leaders, not the group per se, but people who are evolutionary leaders, paradigm shifters who are the disruptors, and the coders who are coming up with the new patterns for how we make this world work, and the youth who they've learned completely different than we did, and we're still teaching them the same way.
right,
But
but
they have like a 4 second, 20 seconds, maybe at the
attention
most,
span, yeah.
attention span, and their minds are wired differently than ours because of it. And so we need to learn from them, but we also need to help them. There's this comes from me, not from anybody else, but from my idea. If I would put my marketing trends forecasting brain on mask, you might say, I would call 3 groups. There are the youth who are scared to death and they're lost and they're suicidal. There are those who don't fit in, don't know how to fit in. Technology has really scooped them out of realistic society. And so they escape into technology. And then there are the young activists that are out there really working with the 3-dimensional world. So we need to be able to reach all 3 of those groups and see where they fit, because when it comes down to the basics for what we might call the ecosystem of the new world, everybody has a role.
Yeah.
Nothing's too small. Nothing is too big.
Yeah.
The key is finding your authentic self.
Yeah. But as you're talking, it just made me think there is a world that we're missing, and that's the world of the older people who are intimidated by the new technology. And I keep on meeting some friends, who are well into their, 60s, 70s, and 80s, who don't use the internet, who don't use the technology now because they're frightened of it and they don't know how to do it. And
Well, there are a lot, send them to the libraries. Libraries will teach them. The senior centers will teach them. I know here in the villages where my mom lives, it's a retirement community, and they have all these rec clubs, and they make these classes so easy. You could just invite them on Zooms and have a neighbor teach them how to get on a Zoom. My mother's best friend lives in Arizona. She's 95 too. And I've been trying to get her on Zoom with mom. Yana, you might have seen mom on Zoom. She's come on many times.
Oh, she's adorable. I was hoping that she might want to be a part of a show sometime with you.
Oh, she would. She would. She's very entertaining. And we do what we call here in the villages. I'm Janice and she's Francine, but we do the Fran and Jan show.
Fran and Jan.
And we've been told we should perform.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah, we have a shtick. Yeah, that's for sure. But finally, I got her best friend Ann to get on a Zoom. Her daughter came from Colorado to Arizona and put her on a Zoom. She was scared of it. Now she's like, "Can we Zoom next week?" Be able to see a woman that she's 95 now, that she's known since she was 12 or 14 years old, and they can't travel anymore, has been incredibly enriching. So it's incumbent upon us to help them. And Zoom is one of the easy things that you can do I mean, if I can teach an Aboriginal elder who lives in the bush country to get on a cell phone and Zoom, and we've taught a lot of them how to do that. And we've had some very significant meetings with 40, 50 people from both hemispheres, both indigenous and non-indigenous, for what they call yarning. A yarning is much like your show. You begin on something and end on whatever gets woven in between.
Well, that's the marvelous thing that I find about Zoom, that it can unite the world. Like I have I have a show on Many Shades of Green, which Jan is very familiar with Maxine Margot Rubin. And right now she's working in Chappaqua to save a forest, Buttonhook, because they want to knock it down and build buildings. And it was an area for indigenous people. It might be we're talking about might be an Indian burial ground. And they're going through all sorts of, you know, legal battles now to save it.
Well, that's a really important thing that you've just brought up, this land back movement, which is becoming quite successful, but it doesn't get enough attention and people don't really understand. Like, I often start my conversation, I'm Janice Hall, I live in the Villages, Florida, on the unceded territory of the Seminole Nation.
Yeah. Which I like, which I found out, speaking to some things on, the Many Shades, is that the indigenous people, they didn't own the land. They were caretakers. They
Right.
the land was the land. It was like a separate entity, and they made sure that it was well kept.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened. That's the story of New York. The story goes that the Dutch bought Manhattan Island for $24, but it was Manhattan is actually the
Manhattan.
original term. And the Ramapo took that $24 in wampum and accepted it as cohabitation. We'll teach you how to live off the land, and you teach us what we'll give us you land to live on, and we'll share with you. We're caretakers of the land. Exactly. And the Dutch said, yep, no, we own it. No, they don't have, indigenous people don't have ownership. Right?
Ownership.
Absolutely.
Well, last
And
week we had Mitzi Clementina, and I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's in New York. She also is of Bolivian heritage. So she celebrates her Andean culture and is working very closely with the same sort of thing that you're talking about with the ancestors and coming together and welcoming the ancestral spirits and paying attention to them. And so she's working very closely, and it's about land sovereignty. And then we met another person that we interviewed during our 11 days of global unity, Lily, I forget her last name, but she's from Colombia. No, is that the country in South America, Colombia?
yeah, well, that's a country in South America. I don't remember.
All of a sudden my mind went blank and I'm like, wait a minute. But it's the same idea, the sovereignty, the land was taken away by them and so who owns the land, and trying to get back what was part of their culture. So I'm just thinking, and I work with a lot of people in Africa who are the same kind of thing, like trying to help their communities to come back together and to survive. So we're working on a lot of the same things.
Right. And so it's really important because in helping them get their land back and allowing them, it allows them to thrive and practice their culture, which we took away from them. It
Mhm.
helps our future. It is a win-win situation because we can't really move ahead in the 21st and 22nd century without indigenous knowledge, because indigenous people, I believe they're about 20% of the population of the earth, but they caretake 80% of the earth. So without them, we would have already tanked this planet. We really would.
Right.
They hold the knowledge to move us forward. They hold the knowledge on how to repair the land because
Yeah.
they speak with the
Yeah,
land. They recognize
excuse me,
that
Janice, but we're down to a minute left in the show. How can people get a hold of you if they want to speak to you? Do you have a website or?
Well, like LinkedIn, I just want to say in that last minute that we need to realize that we can't fix nature, that we're part of it. And that's the key. Listen to the land, listen to the water. Nature does speak to you. Listen. The answers are blowing in the wind, just like Bob Dylan said. So
Yeah.
stop and listen. My LinkedIn is Janice Hall, Natural Network International. I took down my website because I was sort of reigniting who I am. And as the hallway, it's not about me, it's about who I connect. And that's an evolutionary pattern weaver. So and a storyteller
Yeah.
for the new earth. So
Well, we have an information sheet that we're working on for all of our guests so that people can get in touch or find out, with the podcast and the video cast, how to get in touch with people that they hear about and find out about it. But we'd love to have you back because you have so much information. We could talk forever, couldn't we, Mel?
Definitely. We'd love to have you back with some of the indigenous people that you speak to
Wouldn't
give
that be
them
and I'd
another
also
cool?
perspective.
like to be able to introduce you to some of the young networks that I work with and
Yes.
have them on here so we can build that intergenerational dialogue that's so important, intergenerational indigenous dialogue
Yeah,
as well.
well, as I say, Malcolm Presents basically is I'm trying to build a network of shows, starting like with I have other shows which are much lighter topics, are fun, but I like an informational show, sort of like what you have, introducing to our people to the various indigenous people around the world and have a connection with them, find
And
a
to
Right.
the
meaning to Earth.
and to the
But
youth too. So
But it's
that would be
important we
really
give up the life as we thought we know it and really not hang on to the past. And this is like the next year where it's all going to happen. So we need to be more fluid and embrace the new and be a much more collaborative civilization and listen to the elders and to the youth as well.
Definitely.
And
Well, thank you very much for joining us. And I know you'll be back. And for more information, contact Yana.
yes.
And
yeah,
maybe,
or jhall@naturalnetwork.com.
Well, I'll bug you.
Okay.
and again, thank you. And you've been listening to Malcolm Presents. You've been listening to Malcolm and We, heard exclusively on malcolmpresents.com. And remember, guys, vote.
Yes.
Vote.
Vote. The election, we're going to be on Friday. The election is Tuesday. Vote.
Vote like the future depends on
And it
you,
does.
because it does.
Bye bye. See you next week, Yana. Bye.
Bye.